Thank you for joining us for a conversation with Christopher Swith, CEO of the Hartford, and Susan Johnson, Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. They are joining us to discuss their 2023 Catalyst Award-winning initiative. They'll share how they were able to increase representation of women in leadership and advance inclusion at the Hartford through a whole company approach. The work they are doing contributes to accelerating equity on all fronts and ensuring that inclusion thrives. We're thrilled to learn from and celebrate them at this year's Catalyst Awards on March 30th. Welcome, Chris and Susan, and congratulations on an impressive initiative.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lorraine.
The Hartford has an inspiring story. It is a Fortune 200 insurance company founded in 1810, and it has been on a journey of significant change around DEI for more than a decade. Over the years, the Hartford has created a sustainable diversity, equity, and inclusion culture by taking a whole company approach. 2010 through 2021, women's representation among senior VPs and above increased from 18.4% to 42%. And for women of color, it increased from 0 to 12%. So, Chris and Susan, I'm so eager to be able to hear from you in your own words how you made that happen. So I'd like to start with Chris. We know that this type of change really starts at the top. So what has motivated you over the period of time you joined in 2014 to make this a priority and get this amount of change done? Can you tell us about your thoughts and motivations?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, but let me just first say, Lorraine, we're just honored to be recognized with this prestigious 2023 Catalyst Award. As you well know, the Catalyst Award is the premier recognition of organizational DEI initiatives that really drive results of representation and inclusion. So in our company's rich 212 years of history, this is a high achievement for us that we're very proud of. But as you said, I became CEO in 2014. I joined the organization in 2010, and basically a decade and a half ago, we went through our own organizational transformation, that really required some just fundamental changes. So we refocused the organization to focus on our core businesses of property casualty, group benefits, and mutual fund. And then we also recognized at the time we needed a sustainable and a high performance culture that really valued and embraced diversity and different perspectives. That led us to conclude that we needed to do things differently with our talent base to achieve those goals, and that we needed a talent base that had broader and deeper perspectives than the one just say from downtown Hartford. So that was sort of the motivation, and as you well know, that motivation was backed up by research that really does prove that organizations that are inclusive, diverse, listen to their employees, listen to their ideas, perform at higher levels over a sustained period of time, and that's ultimately what we aspired to do.
Well, that's great. And Susan, what I've been amazed at the breadth and depth of everything you've been doing. So I think it'd be great if you could highlight some of the initiatives that you're most proud of, the ones that you think that had the most impact for us.
Sure, and I'll just echo Chris's appreciation for the Hartford being selected as this year's Catalyst Award winner. We're super proud of that. And in terms of the things that we're most proud of in our initiative that we talked about in our Catalyst application is really that whole company approach that you referenced, Lorraine. We talk about 9 different elements across the enterprise, from our board and the vision and the strategy that we set, to our leadership accountability and how we operationalize our DEI vision, and then absolutely with the HR programs and systems and making sure that we are inclusive of our employees. I'd have to say that everyone in our company is actively engaged in planning and executing our DEI strategy. Certainly, you hear from Chris, and I'm incredibly grateful. We're incredibly grateful to Chris, who's been a continuous champion for inclusion of our diversity, equity, and inclusion work. He makes time for it. He sets the priorities for it with his voice and his goals, and he's actively engaged in our comprehensive strategy. Some of the things that he does with his time is spending time with the units to review their DEI plans, to make sure each one of the units are on target and on track to do what they need to do, so that at the end of the day, the whole enterprise advances. And he also pays really close attention to the senior leadership activity, making sure that our talent mobility, the retention of women and people of color, and that we actively include in inclusive leadership training activities. I'd also have to give a shout out to our leaders, because they have done a tremendous job of being true proponents of our diversity strategy. They take it personally and they apply it to their unit operations, and they're actively involved in their unit DEI plans. And certainly our managers and our leaders are accountable for their behaviors and their talent decisions. And in fact, our senior leaders, they have a component of their long-term incentive compensation that is tied to our representation results. And so not only are they personally committed and they make it true to their unit, they also have elements of their compensation that are tied to their results. And then finally, I'd have to say I'm super proud of the life that our employees bring to our culture of inclusiveness. We get some really incredible engagement scores. In fact, 91% of our employees in our most recent engagement survey told us that they can voice their ideas and opinions, even if they're different from others. And so that's very reassuring, and we want to create that culture of belonging. And they also show up in our DEI councils. They work actively on their unit DEI plans. And then certainly our employee resource groups. It's a powerhouse of talent. Over half of our employees are active in at least one of our 9 employee resource groups, and they really bring a lot of our programming and employee inclusion to life. So I would say those are the things I'm proud of.
Well, that's amazing. This whole company approach, it's not an easy thing to do. I was actually listening to a couple of the videos of some of your employees that we're going to be showing at the awards. And it was so clear that they had such passion that it's embedded in the culture and everything that's going on. So, it's very exciting. But, there's a little history here, because in 2016, I know you applied for the Catalyst Award and were not chosen. So then you doubled down, you persevered, and I think a lot of out there would like to know what it took to do that. I mean, you've talked a lot about it, but maybe you want to give us your perspective from that experience.
I think that one of the things that makes me so excited about being awarded the Catalyst Award this year is I know the rigor and the depth to which you all assess the applications. And we thought we had a good story, and I think we told a pretty good story. But after going through the Catalyst Award process in 2015 for the 2016 award, we realized that we were really falling short. And we took a hard look at where we were. We listened to the feedback that you all provided as a part of that application process. And I actually thought about it for a number of years before we determined we were ready to apply again. And, I think, Chris, I'll just invite you to share kind of one of the reasons we went after this award in the first place was the legacy of your predecessor.
Yeah, it's a great point, Susan. But I would also say that first you got to give our 19,000 teammates, employees, a lot of credit. As Lorraine, have you been saying, you could feel sort of the whole company approach. It's been a whole team approach, too. And in fact, what Susan recognizes is my predecessor, Liam, who really stressed the importance of DE&I to the organization. He came from LA, which was a major metropolitan area, And really, he started us on this journey. I would say, Susan, probably 2011, 2012, and the initial work started focusing on women. But over the years, particularly with Susan's strong leadership, we and our head of HR, Lori Rodden, and our head of talent development, Laura E. Coley. I mean, we expanded our representation and inclusion efforts to people of color, those with disability, the transgender community, and real exceptional focus on our Black and Hispanic teammates. So, and then equally, I think it's important to know that our board of directors takes this very seriously. They're actively involved in reviewing on our strategies, our metrics, our progress over the years, and I'm grateful for their support. And that tone at the top is very important, because if you look at our board, 40% of our members are women and or people of color. So we feel good about the tone at the top and what we've accomplished to date. But we always know that there's more to do, and we'll continue to challenge ourselves to do more in this effort.
Well, we've said it a number of times, in the name of this initiative, the whole company approach really says it all in my mind. This is not easy work. It affects every employee. It's cultural change. And as we know, things are always changing, constantly changing. So, where do you see this going? What are your priorities for the future? When you look at how you continue to sustain this, what are your priorities, and what are your thoughts?
I think in terms of our priorities moving forward, we absolutely are going to maintain that momentum that Chris talked about, because it's constantly changing. One of the things that I get totally jazzed about in this space is the conversation in the DEI arena is always changing. And so we want to stay ahead of that. And the other opportunity we have is to continuously build this into our business operations and our practices, so that we remain relevant, we remain innovative, and that we stay in front of a constantly changing market. And I think the other opportunity that we have is to continuously help people understand, what do inclusive leadership capabilities look like? How do they make it personal to them? How do they make it relevant in their leadership and their management operations? And how do they make it more personal for the people that they're working with on a day-to-day basis?
And Chris, what do you think are some of the challenges more broadly in the industry that you're tackling?
Well, I would say, Lorraine, the industry is traditionally not been very diverse. If we really look at it, honestly, both with women or people of color. So I think the industry has an opportunity to really differentiate itself by embracing our diversity, equity, and inclusion goals and objectives that we've set for ourselves over a longer period of time. And the industry could probably use some self-help on its own too. Sometimes it's viewed as a boring industry that maybe is not exciting, and I find it anything but. We get a lot of excitement. We sort of are at the forefront of the global economy, ensuring commerce gets done in a smooth way. I would also say that we probably could do a little better job of explaining the variety of roles and responsibilities that we have in an organization. Like these days, we're hiring more tech people, data scientists, artificial intelligence, folks that are really modernizing our technology, platform, in addition to our economists, our investment professionals, or folks that are focused on government relations or geopolitical risk and politics, or risk engineers. So we do, I think, have an opportunity to appeal to a broad base of talent, that I think could do very well at this organization over a longer period of time. And in this industry, and again, the industry is composed of insurance companies that actually take risks, but there's also brokerage firms and agencies that I think are equally ripe to employ more women or people of color, that are really on the distribution side, the sort of the sales and marketing or client solution side, from a risk management side. So I just think there's a lot of opportunities, and I just want to give Susan one last shout out for building a lot of alliances with our industry peers, with our industry trade groups, with the National African American Association of Insurance, talent, and building a chapter here in our hometown of Hartford, Connecticut, and putting that on the map here in the spotlight. So I'm really pleased with some of the things that we're doing in response, Lorraine, to some of the challenges that you asked about.
It's so interesting that you bring that up because, I, for the life of me, don't understand why more women don't go into becoming independent brokers. It's a flexible field. You build assets over time. You're out there with people, and there's, I'm like, talk to my friends, like, why don't you go into this? This is a great career. And still the numbers are not there. So I just think that what you're doing is really important because it's important to have these opportunities, for women, so that's great. And anything we can do to help you with that cause, we'd like to do. I personally would. But I also want to talk about this in terms of a question that came from social media around the hybrid environment. We've all been going through this big experiment on, remote and hybrid, and you've leaned into it. How that's also important for women. It's even way before the pandemic, we were focused on, hybrid and more flexibility in the workplace. So how has that worked for you, all of you, in terms of the cultural change, the productivity? What is your experience? This is a question came out of the chat.
Yeah, I'll start because one of the things that I was encouraged by as we were coming out of the pandemic, returning to office, helping employees feel comfortable with returning to office, and also giving them that flexibility through a hybrid work arrangement, was we built our approach on the concepts of empathy, equity, and trust. And the fact that those were the foundations of our go forward strategy, as we began it a few years ago, gave me great reassurance. And I thought it was a great reflection of the company that we are and the type of environment that we want to promote, in that you will have a positive work experience, a good employee experience, regardless of where you are, regardless of what your working situation is. And I think we're living into that as we return to office, and trying to make sure we enable people to be in the best place possible for them to be productive on the job, and also to maintain those relationships that are so important to career success.
I think it's everyone's challenge to figure out how to get the right balance there. Chris, did you want to add to that?
All I would just share is I been a stickler for, as you might expect, performance, right? So that I think we offered great flexibility, but it came with a commitment of performing at the highest level, still collaborating, communicating, being actively engaged. And we survey our employee base like others do every year, and I was particularly proud of our engagement and enablement scores. Susan, were sky high, top decile, and industry leading, at least in our judgment. So I think our employees understood, that we still needed to perform for all our stakeholders, while being, flexible with empathy and equity, particularly.
So, I'd like to ask you both one final question. There's a lot of people here would like to aspire to do what the Hartford's done, aspire to win the Catalyst Award. So what advice would you give them if they want to go down their road towards real excellence in DEI?
Susan, how about if I start and you could finish?
Sounds good.
I would say, I think you really need to understand and have all your leaders in the organization, top to bottom, to understand sort of the benefits and the business case for why DE&I makes so much sense. And we've talked about it before, and sort of a journey that an organization goes on. But you have to learn, you have to be vulnerable, you have to act with humility, and really listen to different perspectives. And I don't think you know it all. I could tell you, personally, Susan has done an excellent job, sort of opening up my eyes to different perspectives, different history lessons, really with the idea of, how do you learn, you grow, and develop policies and approaches that, consider, everyone's, perspective. So, Susan, I just want to publicly thank you for the mentorship that you gave me on this, journey. But it is, I think, vitally important for organizations who really want to be sustainable, want to contribute to all their, stakeholders, and live into all their stakeholders to embrace this journey.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Chris, and back at you on the gratitude piece, because I think, Lorraine, you're asking about advice, and, anything you read or research in this space, it will start with the fact that it has to come from the top down. And I've had the great fortune of partnering with Chris in this journey, and it's just been tremendous. What I'll characterize that I see in him is what I would tell other leaders is that two pieces. One is the allyship and the learning. Yes, leaders need to be allies for organizations. They need to be advocates for people who are in different situations that they are. And I think it needs to be balanced with learning. In my experience, leaders that have done the deep work to determine their personal diversity story, what is it? What does it mean to them? And what does it mean to their teams and their business? They really make a significant difference. And I see that in Chris, both in terms of the allyship that he's done with women in the organization, men and women of color, early career talent, and then also in terms of the personal journey, as he cited, he has done the deep, hard work to really determine what this work means to him and why it's important to the Hartford, and it's critical. And the humility that he puts out is significant. Not only is he impacting the insurance industry, but he's also putting his time and his resources to ensure that there are resources and systems in place to make societal progress. And then finally, the second piece of advice I would talk to organizations about is relative to communications, and really two-way, right? In our learning and development programs, we focus in on the talent that we're trying to develop, and we focus on their managers that lead them. It's not just a one-way learning journey, it's a two-way learning journey, the employee and the manager. Likewise with our corporate communications, yes, we have enterprise-wide communications, messagings, things that we signal that are important to the company, and we also have grassroots communications at all levels, so that by using things like our courageous conversation circles, by leveraging our employee resource groups, our internet portal, employees can constantly find a place for their voice to be heard and shared and valued.
Well, Chris and Susan, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, and congratulations again on winning the award. We're going to hear a lot more about what you accomplished at the Catalyst Awards that will be on March 30th. So I'll look forward to seeing you there and celebrating. And I also ask anyone who wants to come join us and in person or online on March 30th. Thank you all for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.